Jia, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Alina Mubashir, and I serve on the World Food Forum Youth Policy Board for Asia and the Pacific. And I am a member of the steering committee at FAO WFF Global Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture. It is my honor to welcome you today to today's session of the COP30 Virtual Ocean Pavilion on empowering youth in fisheries and aquaculture, advancing climate action through sustainable aquatic food systems. On behalf of the FAO Global Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture, I'd like to extend our appreciation to the organizers of the COP30 Virtual Ocean Pavilion and our partners at the Environmental Defense Fund, EDF, WorldFish, FAO, and the World Food Forum for creating this space for dialogue and collaboration. The World Food Forum Youth Assembly is a youth-led platform empowering young people to engage in policy discussions on agri-food systems. It provides a space for youth to contribute to governance processes and ensures their voice influences decisions at all levels. Launched last year during the 36th session of the FAO Committee on Fisheries, the Global Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture recognizes the unique challenges and valuable contributions of young people in this sector. Since its creation, it has united a global network of youth organizations, engaged with senior experts, and drafted a youth manifesto, which we invite you to read by scanning the QR code on the screen. In addition, the website of the constituency and the link to become a member are available on the screen and regularly updated with relevant information, including upcoming work and events. Today's conversation centers on a shared goal, ensuring that youth are not just beneficiaries, but leaders in shaping the transformation of our blue food systems that are not just vital for global nutrition, livelihoods, and resilience in the face of climate change. This work aligns with FAO's Blue Transformation Roadmap, a vision for more sustainable fisheries, aquaculture, and value chains. We invite you to learn about this roadmap by scanning the QR code on the screen. Today's event aims to, firstly, raise awareness of the FAO Global Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture and its mandate. Secondly, highlight youth-led innovations and initiatives contributing to climate adaptation and mitigation. And lastly, but not least, identify new partnership opportunities that connect partners such as youth networks, governments, and institutions. The event will begin with a keynote address from FAO's Fisheries and Aquaculture Division. Next, we'll hear from inspiring young leaders and more seasoned experts working across science, community engagement, and policy during a panel discussion, each demonstrating how youth participation is essential for advancing the blue transformation and strengthening the climate-resilient aquatic food systems. Finally, the session will close with reflections on the discussion from a member of the Global Youth Constituency, followed by a representative from our COP30 host country, Brazil. Before we begin, a brief note on logistics for the session. While video and audio and chat are disabled for participants, you are warmly encouraged to submit questions at any time through the Q&A box. If you're comfortable, please include your name and affiliation so we have a sense of who is joining us today. We will weave audience questions into each panel discussion, and any that we aren't able to take up live, we will aim to address in writing. To begin our session, I am pleased to invite our keynote speaker, Shizhuan Ma from FAO, to set the stage and share insights on the relationship between fisheries and aquaculture and climate change, and the critical role of youth that can play in shaping a sustainable future.
Thank you, Alina, colleagues and friends. It's an honor for me to be part of this event. In the next 10 minutes, I would like to take you through a quick journey on how the policies for aquatic foods and climate change are created at the global level and where young people can get involved. Next slide, please. I know not all of you have a background in fisheries and aquaculture, so I would like to start my presentation with two numbers. The aquatic food sector has relevance to 3 billion people in the world as a source for essential protein intake, and it provides job opportunities to around 600 million people. And what is more exciting is that fisheries and aquaculture generally have a lower carbon footprint compared with most land-based animal food production systems. This makes them a low-carbon food solution to address the hunger problem and also the climate problem. But to make this happen, we need to make sure that aquatic foods are integrated into the climate policies, and vice versa, the climate change is included in the aquatic foods policies. Next slide, please. Let's first look at the climate policy making process. This process is based on 3 treaties, namely the UNFCCC, so the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, Paris Agreement, and Kyoto Protocol. So these treaties set up a multilateral process for climate negotiations. And the decision-making body is COP, so the Conference of Parties, where countries negotiate and decide on matters related to climate change. COP could be a little bit overwhelming because it is usually attended by tens of thousands of people, and generally there are 3 types of spaces. The first one is the official zone, where you will need a badge to enter. It is also called a blue zone. And at the core of the blue zone is the negotiation area, together with many side event spaces and pavilions hosted by countries and international organizations. Next to the blue zone is the green zone, where many side events and exhibits are organized. There are also off-site venues like the Virtual Ocean Pavilion, to ensure that people who cannot travel to COP can also have a channel to engage. And one thing we need to know about climate negotiations is that they cover all sectors. So if you look at the list of current topics under negotiation on the right, you will see that none of them relates to a specific sector. So it is not realistic to push for a separate negotiation topic dedicated to aquatic foods. A more effective strategy would be to integrate aquatic food systems into these existing negotiation topics, such as adaptation, finance, the ocean, and just transition. Next slide, please. And this is what FAO and partner organizations have been doing in the past 16 years. From this timeline, you can see that it all started in 2009 in the green zone with the first Ocean Day, where aquatic foods were also discussed. And with 7 years of efforts, the Ocean Day moved into the blue zone, so the official zone. And then with another 7 years, in 2023, fisheries and food security was selected as one priority topic for discussion at the annual Ocean Dialogue, which is a regular and official process under the UNFCCC. And this year, with a lot of support from the Brazil government, fisheries and aquaculture have been included in the climate action agenda. Hopefully, it can lead to some negotiation outcomes of direct relevance to the sector. Next slide, please. So why does this matter? It is because there are resources tied to the implementation of negotiation outcomes. These include climate finance, technology exchange, and capacity building opportunities. And from the diagram here, you can see that another key entry point is actually to go through the national processes, including the nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and national adaptation plans. The rationale is that once aquatic foods are included as among the national climate priorities, it will increase the chance of countries to receive finance, technology, and capacity building support for the sector. And this will benefit people behind the climate action to safeguard their food security, nutrition, income, and cultural identity. Next slide, please. To support this, FAO, in collaboration with partner organizations, has developed the NDC Fish Guidelines and the NAFFISH Guidelines to provide guidance to countries on how to integrate aquatic food climate solutions into the national climate strategies. And the good news is that these guidelines are being taken up by countries. Around 60% of the NDCs refer to adaptation in fisheries and aquaculture, and there are also several fisheries sectoral national adaptation plans developed by Chile, St. Lucia, and Senegal. FAO is also supporting Uganda in developing the first ever inland fisheries sectoral national adaptation plan. By the way, some of the authors to the NDC fish guidelines from WorldFish, EDF, and Embrapa are also with us here today. So we really have very good experts in this event, and you will hear from them later. Next slide, please. On the other hand, we also need to bring climate change to the aquatic food policy making space. At FAO, the decision-making body is the Committee on Fisheries, COP30, where countries meet every 2 years to discuss and decide on matters related to fisheries and aquaculture. And because of the importance of the climate change topic, it has been on the agenda at COP30 in the past years. So countries share their experience in impacts and responses to climate change in the sector. They also identify needs that require FAO support and agree on priorities for regional and international cooperation. FAO will then follow up with these country requests to develop projects and policy guidance. The next session of COP30 will take place in September next year. Next slide, please. Now we have a good view of the aquatic foods and climate change policy-making processes. I would like to address the importance of youth engagement in these processes. There's an old saying, if you don't decide for yourself, someone else will decide for you. And if you don't want this, please show up at the policy-making table. And here are some practical entry points. To join the FAO Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture, to participate in discussions during the coffee sessions, and to engage through the YONGO, so the Official Children and Youth Constituency under the UNFCCC, to provide input to the relevant negotiation topics such as just transition, and also to contribute to the national processes, for example, the consultation workshops in relation to the development of the NDCs and national adaptation plans. I know getting involved takes time and energy, but I want to assure you your engagement will make a difference because many of you will grow into policymakers or decision makers in your respective domains. And it's better to start gaining experience from now to make the right decisions that will benefit a lot of people in the future. Next slide, please. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm very excited to hear the intergenerational dialogues between the experts and the youth leaders. Thank you, and over to you, Alina.
Thank you so much, Ishwan, for that insightful keynote. Your reflections set the stage perfectly for our discussion today, one that highlights how the next generation is driving innovation, building partnerships, and shaping policy to make fisheries and aquaculture more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient to climate change. Before we move into our panel discussion, just a gentle reminder for our audience, although video, audio, and chat are disabled, you are very welcome to share your questions at any point in time through the Q&A box. We'll bring selected questions into the discussion, and any we're not unable to take up immediately, we'll address in writing later on in the session. We'll now move into our intergenerational panels, an interactive segment designed to exchange insights and spark new ideas. We will have 3 dialogues, each featuring 2 panelists, each focused on a key dimension of this transformation. Our first panel explores how science and research can drive solutions for climate adaptation in fisheries and aquaculture, and how youth researchers are contributing to this process. Joining us are Cristina Zanzotti, co-founder and president of the Network of Women in Aquaculture, and Michelle Tigchedar, senior scientist and impact area lead at WorldFish. Cristina, let's begin with you. How can young researchers in fisheries and aquaculture contribute meaningfully to national or regional climate action plans? Over to you, Cristina.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. And thank you very much, Alina, for your question. So there are actually a few practical ways that young researchers in fisheries and aquaculture can meaningfully contribute to national or regional climate action plans. Firstly, young researchers bring new scientific perspectives and are often the quickest to adopt innovative tools that can help governments move from broad climate commitments to evidence-based, location-specific adaptation strategies. Secondly, young researchers are essential for bridging the gap between research and practice. Too often, climate action plans remain high-level documents that don't translate to operational changes. Early career scientists can help co-design solutions with fishing communities, aquaculture farmers, or local agencies, helping translate complex climate models into practical guidelines or community-based monitoring protocols. Third, young researchers can strengthen policy dialogues by bringing a fresh energy and a collaborative spirit to these panels. This is something that we also try to achieve through the youth constituency, which you also mentioned in the beginning of this webinar. Also, young researchers are uniquely positioned to champion inclusive and just climate action. Fisheries and aquaculture are deeply tied to livelihoods. Climate solutions should consider gender, youth employment, and local knowledge. So young scientists often have a strong community connections and can elevate voices that are traditionally underrepresented. Lastly, young researchers can lead by example. Their participation in regional youth forums, scientific committees like the constituency and international climate negotiation help ensure that fisheries and aquaculture are not overlooked in the broader climate agendas. So to sum up, meaningful contributions come from three pillars, which are producing actionable science, building bridges between the communities and the policymakers, and bringing creativity, inclusivity, and determination to the climate agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina, for that perspective. And thank you so much for summarizing your insightful knowledge. I believe that it is necessary for us to have the inclusion of all voices if we want policy to be holistic and sustainable. Now, Michelle, building on Christina's points about youth-led innovation, your question is, how do you see institutions like WorldFish creating pathways for young scientists to contribute their research directly into climate frameworks?
Yeah, thank you so much, Alina, and thank you so much, FAO, for inviting me here today. Good morning. I'm currently in Belém in Brazil at COP30, and I can attest to what Treshawn was saying earlier about this being a bit of an overwhelming space. So it's actually really nice to be able to start my day in this more inspirational and motivating space here with youth leaders. I have to say it's a bit confrontational to all of a sudden be on the old side of an intergenerational dialogue, but I'm sure I'll survive. I thought I would start with just a little bit of a background about sort of my scientific journey to where I am now, in case I can help frame some of the thoughts on entry points for young scientists. So I really started more in the basic science side of things in climate science, and I started working on quite abstract problems of how climate changes over really long periods of time, like ice ages. And since then, I've been very slowly moving towards more applied science, like how climate change impacts food systems. And now I'm working more at the science policy interface. And I'm currently working for an organization called WorldFish, which is a research for development organization that is part of the CGIAR. And there we really focus on improving people's lives through sustainable and resilient aquatic food systems. And what I've noticed is that really just in the decade and a half since I started my PhD, there's really been a shift within the climate and sustainability space where there's increasing value that's being placed on action-oriented and policy-focused research rather than just basic science. And this really means that there is an increasing need for many different skill sets: data science, policy analysis, storytelling, qualitative research, human-centered design, et cetera, and also that there is increasing value placed on interdisciplinary and collaborative processes. And I think this is really a big opportunity for young scientists from different backgrounds to contribute to climate action in food systems. I think this was also a point that Christina was bringing up, but we're seeing that innovations and technologies and really just how we do research are really rapidly advancing. So I think this is a key reason why it is essential that young scientists are brought into different research teams. And I just wanted to give a few concrete examples of how we've worked with young scientists over the last couple of years on work that advances climate action in aquatic food systems. So the first one is really the NDC guidelines that Shreshan already highlighted. And this was a collaboration between WorldFish, FAO, the Stanford Center for Ocean Solutions, and several other organizations. And for the writing process here, we worked together with a PhD student from the University of British Columbia, and she was really able to synthesize a lot of the existing evidence on adaptation and mitigation and organize it into sensible categories, and then helped us also at the Bonn climate negotiations to organize a workshop for negotiators there. And these guidelines have really been a great success. Just yesterday, we learned that as a result of this work, Mexico is now including aquatic foods into its NDC. A second example that I would give is that we are working with young researchers on evaluating the performance of different aquatic food systems. And this is really important for helping governments and other decision makers take action around reducing emissions and increasing sustainability of the sector. So we're working with students from Leiden University who are actively taking classes in current practices in life cycle assessment to help us evaluate different aquaculture systems that we work with in Egypt, India, and Cambodia. So that can really help governments then actually take their climate policy, integrate those data and insights into their climate objectives. And then finally, I see young scientists at WorldFish really being at the forefront of solution development. So it's our young scientists that are often in the field talking to farmers, fishers, communities about their needs, and they are therefore playing a key role in co-developing new innovations. I think on a closing note, I would say it's imperative for us, for me personally, I think, and us organizationally, to work with young scientists, not because of generation, not just because of new ideas and ways of working being brought in, but also, and this really rings here in Belém at the COP, we will forever forward be working on climate change. Throughout the rest of our lives, will we be working on climate mitigation and adaptation, which is a little bit daunting, but it means that it's also key that we keep building science capacity to keep adapting and innovating in the future. So thank you for your interest in being part of this community.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Both you and Christina have highlighted how scientific collaboration between youth and institutions can bridge data, policy, and local realities. We hope to continue on in this work as it is a key ingredient for achieving truly climate resilient aquatic food systems. Before we move into our next dialogue, we would like to open the floor to the audience, and we'll take a moment to engage with a few questions coming in through the chat and bring your perspectives into the conversation. Luckily, we have already gotten a question, and I think I would address this question towards Christina. Which part of the fisheries is most vulnerable to climate risks, stocks, or communities, and which should I start working on first?
That's a great question. Well, when we address these kind of topics, I would say that we should keep in mind that both sustainability and climate sciences have a lot of perspective. sometimes we tend to think that when we speak about sustainability, we tend to only think environmental disaster, which is not only that. Sustainability means also the community, the people, the stakeholder, the environment, the animals, everything. This is, in short, what also the SDGs kind of highlight, the fact that sustainability and protecting the planet is not a simple topic, but a topic that has a lot of sides, and a lot of sides that should be taken care of and studied. So I would say depends on everyone's background. So if you are clearly a biologist, you can start with fish stocks. If you want to also do some advocacy work, you can do them in parallel. If you come from political sciences, fisheries and aquaculture, or theoretical sciences, let's say, fisheries and aquaculture are quite interdisciplinary with a huge value chain. So you could also start working on communities, depends on everyone's background.
Thank you so much, Christina. That was very insightful. I would want to, of course, keep the floor open to more audience questions and, of course, engage both of you in this conversation. And the next question is addressed to Michelle. Adding to what you have shared with us today, what advice would you give to members of the GYCFA on how they can use this platform for effective knowledge sharing and for connecting their research interests and inputs to youth-led climate action?
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Of course, no worries. Adding to what you have shared with us today, what advice would you give to members of the GYCFA on how they can use this platform for effective knowledge sharing and for connecting their research interest and input to youth-led climate action?
Okay, I will.
Just for
I find it.
clarification,
Yeah.
GYCFA is the Global Youth Constituency on Fishing and Aquaculture, just for everyone to know as well.
Thank you. That's a really, really helpful context. I think I don't know if this is going to turn into very concrete advice, but I think what is often sort of challenging in these global discussions is that there's a certain, like hype and energy around things like COP30 and these global processes where you feel like, oh, okay, this is really where the decisions are being made for the world. But then I think a lot of people end up getting really frustrated with it and kind of burning out on these processes because they're just incredibly obscure and dense. And then it's really difficult to see concrete progress in the long run. Just as an example, over the last couple of years, there's been this work stream on agriculture within UNFCCC called the Sharm el-Sheikh Joint Work on Agriculture. And in 4 years, the only thing that they've now achieved is that here at COP30, they had an informal discussion on a report that they wrote in June. And the final decision that they made in Belém is that they're going to submit the informal report on the discussion on the report. So this is like, it's really difficult to measure concrete progress in these global spaces. So I think my advice would be to find ways to keep connecting it as much as possible to national and local processes and outcomes, because I think what you are able to achieve will be much more tangible and concrete, and that will really allow you to keep going and see the contributions that you're making, rather than get really frustrated by the slow pace and obtuseness of things here in the UN processes.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I think that is a very relevant conversation right now as well on how we can engage more and ensure that whatever processes we're adopting are not only sustainable, but impactful to all members of communities. And I think it's so essential to have more youth voice as part of that conversation. This question is again from the audience, and it is open to both you and Christina. Feel free, either one of you, to jump in. Just a short, brief answer would be okay as well, so we can move towards the next session. But what aspect of freshwater aquatic ecosystems, particularly from the Himalayan region like Nepal, has been included so far? And how can we highlight the impact of climate change to these areas from an aquaculture aspect? Please do let me know if you guys would like me to repeat the question as well.
Could you repeat it one more time, please?
Of course. What aspect of freshwater aquatic ecosystems, particularly from the Himalayan region, like Nepal, have been included so far, and how can we highlight the impact of climate change to these areas from an aquaculture aspect?
Oh, okay. So I'm not familiar with Himalayan ecosystems, unfortunately, because I come from Greece, and I usually study Mediterranean aquaculture, so sea bream and sea bass. So I have no background to give a suggestion on that. I'm not the expert on that, but I would say yeah, that if you would like to bring to the table climate change aspects and their impacts in these kind of areas, it would be good to engage with our constituency, because I'm sure there will be a representative from these areas come in contact with them, and they would bring these topics to the table and represent the youth of that specific area. So basically, try to engage with the representatives that are working here at the World Food Forum in partner associations or in the constituency.
Thank you so much, Christina. I would also just like to plug in for our audience members as well. I myself am a part of the World Food Forum Youth Policy Board representing Asia and the Pacific, and I am from Pakistan. So South Asia is definitely part of the conversation when it comes to fishing and aquaculture as well, and engaging with the youth constituency, as I am also part of the member, would allow us to ensure that more members are part of the conversation. So please do engage with us on our website, and you can join to become a member of the constituency so that we can lead more global conversations with youth inclusion from South Asia as well. Now, moving forward, our second dialogue turns to partnerships, the collaboration that enable both. Firstly, I also would want to say thank you, Christina and Michelle. I appreciate you guys so much for that conversation and that dialogue. Your voice, your opinions and insights and expertise have added a lot of value to this conversation, and I hope more audience members are able to engage with you as well outside the forum, as in case they have any more questions from your expertise. Thank you. And now moving towards our second dialogue. Our second dialogue turns to partnerships, the collaboration that enabled both innovation and inclusivity and climate adaptation. Joining us on this panel are Gunguletu Malangu, CEO of House Harvest and Yongo representative, and Julie Ann Royes Russo, CEO of Caribbean Aquaculture Education and Innovation Hub. Again, please, audience, do feel free to ask questions throughout the panel session. We will bring selected questions into discussion at the end of this panel. Julianne, let's start with you. Under your leadership, the CAE-IIH has championed programs like the Women in Caribbean Aquaculture and the newly established Youth and Caribbean Aquaculture Club. How can, my question to you would be, how can youth and women-focused initiatives with aquaculture be scaled through multi-stakeholder partnerships to strengthen resilience and sustainability in the sector?
Thank you so much, Alina, for that question. And thank you to FAO for creating this space for us to talk about the future of aquaculture in the Caribbean. In 2024, I started the Caribbean Aquaculture Education and Innovation Hub, otherwise known as the Caribbean Aquaculture Hub, under which we created Youth in Caribbean Aquaculture and Women in Caribbean Aquaculture, because we are responding to two urgent realities. First, the Caribbean aquaculture is still far behind global production, even though our region has a natural ecosystem, the coastline, and human talent to lead. And second, we saw a widening generational and gender gap. Young people are not entering the field, And although more women in the Caribbean are graduating with science degrees than men, they are not visible in aquaculture research, leadership, or industry. So YCA and WICA were built to address these gaps, not just by offering training, but by building community, mentorship, and visibility. And when we talk about scaling these initiatives across the region, the truth is that no single organization can do it alone. It requires a network of multi-stakeholder partnerships, governments, universities, private firms, NGOs, and international agencies working in alignment. Governments can help to de-risk the sector and open pathways. Universities can modernize curricula and offer research opportunities. Industry can provide hands-on apprenticeship, and NGOs can reach the communities and build trust. Scaling also means investing together. When we pool funding through grants, blended finance, and private sector co-investment, we can expand youth cohorts, create more women-led pilot farms, and build demonstration sites on multiple islands that serve as learning hubs. And to truly close the generational gap, we need to make the sector visible and exciting for young people. We need practical internships, innovation labs, digital learning, and clear pathways that take them from secondary school all the way to research labs and farm management. At the same time, we must make Caribbean women scientists visible. That means putting them on panels, giving them fellowships, highlighting their research, and making sure their contributions are seen in media and public dialogues. When young Caribbean women see other women in leadership, they can step forward with confidence. And as we uplift women, we must also bring boys and young men back into science through mentorship, hands-on programs, and scholarship support, so the sector develops with balanced and shared opportunity. Another area where partnership matters is in creating real market connections. When youth and women-led producers have agreements with hotels, restaurants, processors, and exporters, they see that aquaculture is not only a skill, it is a livelihood. And as we grow, policy support becomes essential. Simplifying licensing, improving access to seed and feed, and ensuring that regulatory frameworks are gender responsive can remove many of the barriers that currently discourage new entrants. What gives me hope is that we are already seeing the impact of interest in our young scientists and ambassador networks across the region. In fact, we just started our youth Caribbean Aquaculture Next Generation program, which is bridging the young scientists with seasoned farmers. When one island builds a successful model, whether in seaweed culture, tilapia production, or community hatcheries, we can replicate it, we can adapt it, and scale it through collaboration rather than isolation and competition. So in closing, scaling youth and women-focused initiatives is really about sharing responsibility across sectors and sharing visibility across generations. If we work together in our networks, government, academia, industry, and communities, we can close the production gap, strengthen resilience, and finally position the Caribbean as a serious global player in sustainable aquaculture. Our young people and our young women scientists are ready. Thank you, and I look forward to building these partnerships together.
Thank you so much, Julianne, for your insights. And having gender-oriented initiatives ensures that both boys and girls, young women and men are considered in dialogue when it comes to shaping the enrichment of their communities. And I believe advocacy and recognition is crucial for the inclusion of young women in fishing and aquaculture communities and policy moving forward. Now moving forward, Mungoletu, turning to you, my question for you would be, House Harvest integrates local knowledge with innovative practices. How can the model guide youth and community-led efforts in developing sustainable solutions in other sectors, including fisheries and aquaculture?
Thank you so much, Alina, and greetings to everyone. My name is Guguletu Mahlangu. I'm from South Africa, and I'm also representing Yango Food and Agriculture and the Just Transition Working Groups. And I'm the founder of House Harvest, and we are an aquaponics enterprise. So my work focuses on bringing local indigenous knowledge and innovative technologies to create a food system to respond to the climate and water challenges that we face in our country. So at House Harvest, we are using aquaponics, which is a circular system that grows fish and vegetables together. The fish produce the nutrients for the plants clean the water for the fish, and it allows us to recycle water and save water. We actually love to say that aquaponics uses 90% less water than traditional methods. And we farm using local indigenous fish, like we use Mozambique's tilapia fish, and as opposed to the Nile tilapia because it's invasive in our waters. And we also are using catfish as well. Both species that we use in our aquaponic system are culturally familiar, and they provide a lot of nutrients. And with the fish, we are also growing indigenous foods such as herbs, umhlonyane, which is Artemisia, African eggplants. We're growing peppers. We're growing a variety of leafy greens such as spinach, and our local varieties, which is umroho or amaranth here in South Africa, because we believe in indigenous foods that are naturally adapted. And we really want to connect to this new innovative way of growing food within our cultures and our community. And as a part of circularity at House Harvest, it is very expensive for us as a small business to be buying fish feed. So we have come up with a way to supplement our fish feed diet by using black soldier fly larvae. It is a high protein, low feed emission alternative. It reduces waste and the fish love it. The trick is to ensure that you give them a balanced nutrition, because tilapia can also be very finicky, but the catfish love it. Well, catfish actually will eat anything, but we have found that it really helps us grow healthy, fresh fish for our consumers. So this is just a practical example of how we as youth and women at House Harvest are innovating by combining these principles that are low cost technologies. Anyone can adapt it. And I am very excited about the blue economy because it's going to open up creative industries that are going to go very far and beyond. A friend of mine is actually making fish leather bags using sustainably processed fish skins. So that's just another innovative way that we can partner up with local innovation that support sustainable fashion. These are all value-added industries that are opening up as a result of aquaculture. And I feel that we cannot overlook the nutritional importance of fish, especially. Just a personal story, my cousin was pregnant, and she went to our local clinics, and they gave her omega supplements for her last trimester. Just another emphasis of how important fish is to our brain development. And globally, there's 3.3 billion people that rely on fish as their main source of animal protein, because fish has the omega-3s, the irons, the zinc, the amino acids. And when young people, I believe, participate in aquaculture and fisheries, we're not just building, economic opportunities, but we are strengthening public health and nutrition, especially in rural communities where we really need it. And I'm really excited about collaboration and partnerships. I would have not founded House Harvest alone. All the statistics, all the innovations that we do around House Harvest come from partners, especially the universities. And Yango has exposed me to advocacy and policy as well, because we are driving youth-led solutions. And just to highlight more stories from the ground, Yango has made the first fully youth-centric submissions to the SSJW, which is the Sharm el-Sheikh Joint Work on Agriculture and Food Security portal. So it's an important shift in youth advocacy because now we are raising our voices, we are showcasing the work that we do across the entire world. So I believe that when we talk about how we can transform our communities and looking at aquaculture as one of the innovative ways we can do that, I feel like we need to include youth and we need to include women. We need platforms, investments to scale the work that's already happening. House Harvest is an example. I'm born and bred in a mining town, but I'm now in the Eastern Cape. And the local knowledge about fish was actually taught to me by the young people who already live here. So it is already happening, but we need to highlight these stories. We need to work together. We need to partner up with people that have been practicing this for a very long time, and we need to support them and we need to fund them. So thank you. That is my presentation for today.
Thank you so much, Guguletu, for introducing innovative practices such as, and explaining innovative practices such as aquaponics. I believe the work that House Harvest is doing is leading pathways for scalable solutions that can later on be replicable in different local actions. I know for myself that this is definitely work that can be replicable and even in communities in South Asia. But moving on, thank you both. It's clear from your experience that the partnerships built on inclusivity and shared learnings are the foundation for both local resilience and global transformation. Before we move into our final dialogue, we would like to open the floor once again to our audience. We have received a question for Julianne. The question is, what practical training or technologies do you believe can help small coastal communities in the Caribbean strengthen climate resilient aquaculture? How would I apply this in my native area, Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh? I'm interested in how I can partner with your workshop from Bangladesh. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. So what we are actually doing is using the virtual platform online. Right now, again, we just implemented the youth group, and because we don't have any aquaculture classes within our university systems, what we are planning to do is partner with another university overseas where we're going to be doing online classes. So partnering, and using the virtual platform, doing e-classes is one of the ways to be able to have easy access. And there's, YouTube knowledge as well. And then what we're doing is actually, once the students get the training, the basic training, is to partner with farmers or seasoned farmers so that we have that generational gap being bridged. Other tools, for example, in seaweed farming, the waters are getting warmer. So we suggest that, kind of a biobank or seeds are kind of put aside in case we have a hurricane and some of the farms are destroyed. So you have access to seedlings to start again. Just some low technology to be able to just have access, just like plants. If you have a hurricane and plants gets destroyed, you can be able to replant again quickly. Having low tools like, water quality sensor tools or just being able to monitor regularly what's happening within your system is vital. And to just develop some kind of technology that can help with getting back, in case you have a hurricane or flooding, solar systems, generators. So that's something we ourselves are working on. And that's after we had this massive hurricane in Jamaica, which we had a category 5, which damaged a third of the island. And now we're going to, we're using a bad thing, but we really need to be able to use what we've experienced to figure out how we're going to move forward. So if you follow us, we have our website, we have our, you can join our newsletter to see what programs that we're going to be having in the future. And we'll be sharing what we have learned, lessons learned from what's happening in the last 2 years in the Caribbean with the hurricanes that we've been having.
Thank you so much, Julianne. Thank you for also sharing how more youth can engage with your organization and the work that you're doing. I feel like it is essential to also be able to highlight these entryways and how youth can be part of the conversation and the solution too. Moving forward to another question from the audience for Guguletu. Noting that you use soldier fly larvae for feed, can you share some insights about how we can scale, inspire others in aquaculture to take on board more innovative and low carbon feeds? What are some of the policy barriers practitioners face to integrate low carbon insect feeds into their practices?
Thank you for the question. I think it's really important to break free from the policy side of things because, in South Africa, a lot of aquaponics models have actually been up already, but they've not been very successful. And as a result, they have brought in a lot of invasive fish that now flood our waters. So the government has moved Department of Fisheries with the environmental department. So fisheries and aquaculture no longer fall under agriculture, which has been a big stumbling block for me personally on the policy side of things, because that means now that I am not getting access to agricultural support because I have to be kind of regulated. So there's a lot of red tape. I have to have permits for my fish. Whoever buys my fish needs permits as well. When I travel, I need to ensure that I have my papers. So that is something that I feel that has limited the scalability of aquaponics and aquaculture in South Africa. Which is something that we are still trying to advocate for, so that the Department of Fisheries and Forestries can move, or rather fisheries can move to agriculture. So that's one, but I feel that, nothing beats seeing an example. And that's how you're going to be able to scale innovation. When you see the next person that looks like you achieve and make a career out of aquaculture, that is when you're going to get inspired, which is what happened to me. I saw my late mentor who came, he had the biggest fish farm in the country that was supplying fingerlings, and his passing left a gap. So for me, I wanted to really honor his legacy in a way. And that has opened me up to so many opportunities. And I feel like that is how we're going to grow the industry, because in South Africa, aquaponics, aquaculture is very easy to adopt. Like with your black soldier flies, we just use buckets, 20-liter buckets that you can get from buying maize meal that are food grade. So it's very easy for you to scale aquaponics big and small, but even if you can start with a prototype that can show how aquaponics works, people start getting interested, people start inquiring, people start wanting to know more. I did the same. I started exhibiting just a prototype of aquaponics using just goldfish that I went to buy at a pet shop. And that's what garnered interest. So I think a lot of advocacy is needed. A lot of policy changes, like with the permits, are needed to change as well. So yeah, that is how I see aquaculture, or rather aquaponics, growing in the sector.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that response. Thank you to both of you for identifying, for your dynamic discussion and identifying innovative solutions and how youth can not only identify entryways, but also apply scalable and sustainable tools and solutions. Please do, audience, do feel free to engage further with our speakers as well. They do have a lot of expertise and insights that can act as scalable solutions, maybe in your community as well. Now moving forward, our final dialogue focuses on policy dimension, exploring how aquatic foods can be better integrated into global climate policy and decision-making mechanisms, including at COP30. Joining us on this panel are Ives Fetosa Dorate, Technical Analyst, National Secretariat of Aquaculture, Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture of Brazil, and Carly Calesso, Acting Senior Director, Global Ocean Strategies, Environmental Defense Fund. Starting with you, Ives, Your question is, in your experience supporting Brazil's preparation to COP30 from aquaculture perspective, what would you say are the most relevant entry points for bringing aquatic foods into the climate negotiations and policies at COP30? And how can youth support this?
Well, Lena, thank you for the question and thank you for the invitation to participate at this event. Well, from the perspective of supporting the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture preparation for COP30, I would highlight two central entry points for ensuring that aquaculture sector become a visible and strategic component of climate negotiations and policy discussions. And these two entry points are related to the integration of aquaculture sector into national policies and strategies on climate change through the National Climate Plan and National Climate Action Agenda, for example. First, we need to bring aquatic foods into climate adaptation agenda. Aquaculture, especially when well managed, offers an essential pathway for strengthening food and security, nutrition and food and nutrition security in climate-stressed world. Many rural and coastal communities in Brazil are already experiencing shifts in rainfall patterns, water temperatures, and extreme events. So aquaculture allows us to diversify production systems and improve resilience and reduce dependence on wild fish stocks that are under increasing pressure, for example. And second, aquatic foods must be integrated into mitigation strategies too. There is growing scientific evidence that certain aquaculture systems, such as integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, mollusk and seaweed farming, and low-impact freshwater systems, that can produce highly nutritious protein with a much lower carbon footprint compared to many other terrestrial alternatives. In our preparation for COP30, Brazil is mapping these systems and their potential contributions to countries' NDCs. The entry point, therefore, is to frame aquaculture not only as a food system, but as a climate solution, one that can be measured, financed, and scaled. And for youth, I think youth can contribute first through the innovation and technology, as many of the solutions like water quality monitoring and low carbon feeds are being developed by young researchers. Strengthening youth participation in innovation ecosystems is essential for moving these solutions from pilot scale to national policy, and to make the link between science and practice, as well as playing a critical role in advocacy and narrative change. Aquatic foods were often underrepresented in global food climate discussions. When young leaders bring evidence and community perspectives to negotiation space, they can help to ensure that aquatic foods are not left behind and can significantly elevate the visibility of this agenda. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Yves. It is essential for us to have fishing and aquaculture to be more in policy, and especially have youth voices in aquatic food system research and policy for both climate adaptation and mitigation. And we appreciate your insights and expertise. Moving forward, Carly, turning to you, your question would be, drawing from your experience, which mechanisms have proven effective in enabling actionable climate governance and policy making in fisheries and aquaculture? What are the entry points for youth in the sector to engage?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today, especially to FAO. And thank you for the question. I believe that climate governance and policymaking in fisheries and science require bridging science, local knowledge, and political will, and ensuring that users have a seat at the table. And this really starts at the local and national level and builds up to inform these international processes such as COP. In my example, three main mechanisms really stick out for me as being successful. The first is data-driven decision-making tools. They're increasingly central in the space. Things like ecosystem-based management tools, digital dashboards, and early warning systems could all help policymakers, scientists, and actors participate and anticipate risks rather than respond to after the fact. And these tools are more and more being paired with participatory science, which gives the opportunity for fishers and youth and community groups to contribute to monitoring and data. And this is really where I feel like governance becomes more legitimate and more effective when you have that community engagement. The second mechanism I see are governance systems that enables and codifies local leadership in informing management and shaping climate responses. So in my experience, this means co-management and rights-based management approaches, such as territorial use rights for fishing. Systems like these creates a stewardship incentive for stakeholders because they have this long-term tie to the resources and the impacts that climate will have on them. And by codifying a role, this gives them the opportunity to really inform how governance and policy making is done. The last mechanism that sticks out to me are participation in multi-stakeholder driven initiatives and coalitions. They create a convening space by aligning governments and research institutions, private sector, and civil society around shared priorities. I could share an example. EDF is the acting secretariat for the Aquatic Blue Food Coalition. It's a coalition of over 60 diverse actors that includes governments, civil society, and producer organizations who are working together to elevate the importance of aquatic foods for biodiversity, human health and well-being, and as a solution for climate. It's a platform where these perspectives are shared and discussed, and it's created a global network that could help facilitate influencing and informing high-level commitments for implementing strategies. For example, we just hosted a session where a newly graduate student presented her research on aquatic food trade and consumption in Africa. And this was not just to academics, since it's a multi-stakeholder group. She was speaking directly at producer organizations and government representatives. And this direct exchange in a relatively informal setting was uniquely valuable. It created an immediate pathway for evidence to inform policy and practice and get this information to those who are making decisions. To the second point in the question around youth engagement, I think this has been highlighted already, but I want to really emphasize contributing to science. Youth can contribute greatly to data collection and monitoring program, especially we're in the age of technology. The ability and the access that we have through mobile apps to contribute is only growing. And this builds technical capacity in the individual, but also strengthens climate data for policymaking. Also, training and fellowships, keeping an eye out for internships, fellowships, volunteering opportunities. That could be the ultimate launch point for engaging in the space and could help shape the next generation of ocean governance and leaders. Participating in existing advisory councils and representation in youth. We have great examples on this call today. I see great convening opportunities through Youngo and Julianne's organization in the Caribbean. These are really essential for bringing these networks, creating these networks, and helping to build future leaders. Digital innovation and entrepreneurship. We need innovation and we need youth-led startups to bring new solutions into the sector. There's a big ecosystem for this type of work. There are accelerators and innovation challenges that can serve as on-ramps for youth to turn ideas into scalable technologies. And the last point is storytelling. Again, we have such access through social media and technology to get stories out of what's happening on the ground, what initiatives youth are taking. And that is just a pathway to get to these higher levels of international negotiations, allowing for outreach and engagement. And this is something that previous generations have not had. And I really think that this is game changing. In the lead up to COP, so much is focused on what are really bright examples, what are examples that we could highlight on the international stage. And I think the youth has a really big role to play in getting those stories out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carly. I believe it is essential for knowledge sharing and skill development for youth in particular, in order for them to be coming from an informed position when shaping climate responses. I would like to thank you both. It is clear from your experiences that there is a strong momentum for bringing youth into climate policy fora. It is important to make sure that the relevant sectors like fisheries and aquaculture are part of that movement. We will now be opening our floor again to the audience. I think we've already received a question for Evis. Please, if you could briefly answer this question, it would be, what policy mechanisms at national level have proven the most effective for integrating young professionals into fisheries and aquaculture climate planning? Please do let me know if you would like me to repeat the question.
Sorry, that was for me?
Yes, oh, sorry.
Can you
yes,
repeat,
it was for,
please?
of course. What policy mechanisms at national level have proven most effective for integrating young professionals into fisheries and aquaculture climate planning? If you could briefly respond to it.
Well, as the ministry as a whole, we have some policies like the Young Fisheries and Science, and that brings these young researchers to do new tools to the fisheries principally, and to bring this to the whole chain of productive chain, you know. And after all, it's making this part of technical assistance to the whole people, and bring to the people to continue this activity in fisheries and aquaculture. So I think that's it for the moment.
Thank you so much. Now moving to Carly, we have another question for you. Based on what you shared, what practical steps can youth in the sector take to make their climate priorities and concerns visible to national delegations and to relevant stakeholders following the overall UNFCCC COP process?
Thank you. That's a great question. My first response is that COP is happening now, but it's really a process that happens throughout the year. And there are opportunities at the national level in many places to, there's forums, there's webinars where your delegations and where government officials are looking for local feedback. So there's always ways through those mechanisms, and it looks different in every country, so I can't give more specifics, but keeping an eye out. I think engaging with organizations such as Yango that have more of that that established platform to reach out at the regional level to help inform is really significant. And then also looking at who else is engaging, the unlikely allies. Aquatic foods has been siloed for so long. We've always talked about them in the oceans and fisheries and aquaculture and freshwater space. And for so long, we didn't talk about those linkages with food systems in the official sense. We're always fighting to have blue foods, I would say, on the plate at these conversations. So what are likely allies who are engaging in your region, in your national context, that you could engage with and convey why this is so important and why this needs to become part of their agenda. And that also extends to development organizations and efforts that are happening in your local community that, you know, building those relationships could help share some of the importance around these topics.
Thank you so much, Carly. And I completely agree. I believe formulating networks and connections with your local communities and bridging those gaps between knowledge and knowledge sharing will really help propel youth more forward in national delegations and be part of more international platforms. This brings us to the end of our panel discussion. Before I move on to our last segment, I would just like to say thank you to everybody, all our panelists today and our audience members for your engagement and great questions. It was very much appreciated. The conversation was quite dynamic, and I hope we can continue this conversation even after. Moving forward, as we near the end of our session, we would like to now hear some reflections. We will now hear some reflections of the session and next steps from Elena Cabrera and Fernanda Sampaio. I'm so sorry for my bad pronunciation. Elena is the head of the Home Bureau Department, Indonesian Coastal Youth Union, and Fernanda is a researcher for the Office of International Relations, Brazilian and the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation. Starting with you, Elena, as a member of the steering committee of the WFF Global Youth Constituency for Fisheries and Aquaculture, can you please share your insights on opportunities and challenges for youth at this nexus of fisheries and aquaculture and climate change that we have heard about during today's session?
Okay. Thank you for the questions, Alina. Hello, everyone. My name is Elena Cabrera. As mentioned before, I serve on the steering committee of the Global Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture, as well as representing the Indonesian Coastal Youth Union. And from today's session, a few clear insights have emerged about the opportunities and challenges for youth working at the intersection of fisheries, aquaculture, and climate change. First, it is very clear that youth are already leading in this space, and that is our biggest opportunity. Across the panels, we saw young researchers contributing to climate science, youth practitioners integrating local knowledge with innovations, and youth policy actors supporting national climate preparations. And this reflects what we also see in Indonesia. Young people are not waiting. We are already generating solutions, whether through community work, sustainable aquaculture, entrepreneurship, or climate advocacy. But the challenge that came through strongly is that systems are still not fully ready to receive youth contributions. We face limited access to technical training, funding, and mentorship. Decision-making pathways are often unclear, especially for youth from coastal or rural communities. Second, youth naturally bridge knowledge systems, and this is a huge opportunity for climate action. We combine traditional fishing knowledge with digital tools, scientific research with community realities, and innovation with cultural wisdom. And today's presentation showed that this interdisciplinary skill set is happening globally. Yet the challenge is that this youth knowledge is often undervalued or seen as informal. And we need more recognition of youth-led innovations and local expertise as equal contributors to climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. And third, partnership came out as one of the strongest opportunities. House Harvest, the Caribbean Aquaculture Hub, and examples from Brazil showed how partnership between youth, women leaders, researchers, and communities help scale ideas and strengthen resilience. But many partnerships still involve youth only at the implementation stage, not at the design, leadership, or decision-making level. There is a gap we must address. And finally, there is an important opportunity for youth in policymaking, especially as we look ahead to COP30. Inputs, community perspective, and innovative practices. The challenge is ensuring youth participation is meaningful, not just symbolic. That we are part of national delegation, advisory groups, and technical discussion, not just observers. This insight resonates strongly with what we experience as Indonesian coastal youth. We see firsthand the urgency of climate impacts on fisheries and aquaculture, but also the passion and capacity of young people who want to be part of the solutions. And this is exactly why the Global Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture exists to connect youth across regions, elevate our voices, and ensure that youth leadership is recognized, supported, and integrated into global processes. And the message from today is very clear. Youth are not only the future of fisheries and aquaculture, we are already shaping its present. With the right support, we can accelerate a more resilient, a more inclusive, and more climate ready blue transformation. Thank you. Back to you, Alina.
Thank you, Elena, for those interesting reflections. And I look forward to hearing about and contributing to the upcoming work of the constituency in the upcoming months and years. And finally, for our closing remarks, I turn to Fernanda. My question for you, Fernanda, would be reflecting on today's discussions about the contributions of youth in fisheries and aquaculture sector to climate science, partnerships, and policy. How does this work fit into the broader goals of COP30?
Thank you, Alina. And it's an honor to be here today and participate in this event. And I congratulate FAO on this brilliant initiative. And I'm speaking from Belém, the host city of COP, where we are historically experiencing a COP in which aquatic food are taking center stage in an intense and dynamic agenda. I'm right now speaking directly from AgriZone, a pavilion built by Embrapa, where for the first time at COP, we have a dedicated space to highlight the importance of agriculture, livestock, fisheries, and aquaculture in the climate agenda. Here, many participants have been sharing solutions for climate change adaptation and GHG mitigation, and many young people are actively participating and contributing to the discussion, bringing engagement and positive energy to this space for dialogue. As we reach the conclusion of this event, it's important to highlight that COP30 stands as a historic milestone for aquatic foods within the climate agenda. For the first time, we are seeing a dynamic collective mobilization from government, NGOs, research institutions, and civil society, joined forces across pavilions and side events to reinforce that aquatic foods cannot be left out of the global climate discussion. As part of this effort, today's sessions reinforce the power of youth as a game changer. Beyond the vital themes of adaptation and mitigation, which have occupied many of these debates, we are giving youth voice as a central place. Placing youth people at the heart of discussions on building a resilient and sustainable aquaculture sector is not just important, it's essential. The energy, creativity, and commitment of young leaders are precisely what we need to generate solutions and moving from intention to implementation on adaptation agendas. As mentioned in the negotiations, decision, and implementation of actions to limit global warming cannot be postponed. The energy and innovative ideas of the younger generation may be, well, the difference we need to succeed in this changing world. And through our panel, we observed the transformative power of youth engagement for fisheries and aquaculture in face of climate change. The youth leaders who spoke showed us through their projects and advocacy how youth-driven actions are already inspiring, accelerating, and strengthening concrete response across the sectors. This meeting stands as a testament that what is possible when we work to amplify youth voice in global climate arenas, especially in the context of aquatic foods. I would also like to spotlight the impact of youth initiatives in connecting and leading organizations in a worldwide movement for more just, inclusive, and sustainable aquatic food systems. Initiatives like these are critical to ensuring that youth perspectives are central to policy making and that real needs are addressed in the strategies we'll build together. Our discussions revealed how youth-driven initiatives are already delivering on both climate mitigation and adaptation. We saw examples ranging from active participation in shaping public policies for fisheries and aquaculture, as in the Brazilian case, to the technical and scientific work of young researchers, leaderships in regional and global networks, and the critical roles of young producers and fishers in their communities. In addition, we identified networks and movements that became stronger through collaboration and sharing research and knowledge. It's also vital to recognize the synergies that arise when younger leaders join forces with humans movements in the sector, building resilience and collective capacity to address climate change ahead. At this COP, aquatic foods have truly earned their place at the climate agenda. As the panel made clear, strengthening youth participation in policy and action from initial designs through to implementations is not beneficial, it's transformative. In closing, I want to reaffirm that this panel and the broader strategies for advocacy and collaboration to include aquatic foods in the UNFCCC agenda need to continue and grow at future COPs. As mentioned, the climate agenda is not limited to the COP itself. We can engage different stakeholders through the year to keep discussing the importance of aquatic food within the climate agenda and their critical role in the global food and nutrition security. Giving youth an active and constructive role in climate policy is fundamental to securing the future of aquatic foods, ensuring food security, and shaping an effective, inclusive, and global response to climate change. Thank you for your participation, ideas, and dedication to make the climate agenda more representative, resilient, and action-oriented. Thank you, Alina.
Thank you so much, Fernanda, for your reflections. I think it really helps us understand where fisheries and aquaculture and youth in the sector can find entry points in these important climate fora and dialogues. What we've heard in this session really reminds us that youth aren't waiting to be invited into the conversation. We're already part of the solution. Whether it's through innovation, research, or local action, young people are showing what climate resilience and sustainability can look like in practice, including in fisheries and aquaculture sector. But for this momentum to grow, we need real partnerships across generations, institutions, and regions. When youth knowledge and community experience meet the support of policymakers and global organizations, that's when transformation truly happens. So my message today is this to young people. Please keep showing up, keep creating, and know that what work you're doing matters. It's shaping the future of blue food systems. And to policymakers, researchers, and partners, let's make sure youth are not just participants, but true partners in building climate adaptive and resilient fisheries and aquaculture sectors. On behalf of FAO Global Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture, the World Food Forum, Environmental Defense Fund, WorldFish, and FAO, thank you all for being here and being part of this very important discussion and dialogue. Let's carry this energy forward and keep building a future where our oceans, our communities, our youth can all thrive together. In closing, I invite you again to please scan the QR code on the screen to join the discussion in the WFF Global Youth Constituency on Fisheries and Aquaculture. Thank you so much.